Hi everyone, my name is Steve Lillyston and you're tuned into Our Library, which is a 30-minute program sponsored by the lovely folk at the Masterton Library to let you know about some of the many books, new books being introduced into the library this month, and some of the services that are on offer at the Masterton Library. Our library is being broadcast to you today on Arrow 92.7 FM, your community access radio channel, and Wairarapa TV on Freeview Channel 41. This program is broadcast live on the third Friday of each month at 3:30 and repeated on the fourth Friday, again at 3:30. So let's get started. Got a few things to go through today. We'll start off with the fiction. I've got quite a variety of fiction which I've pulled out today, which I think you'll find interesting. I hope so. The first one is called The Bear Pit, and that's by Shona MacLaine. The Commonwealth is balanced on a knife edge. Royalists and disillusioned former parliamentarians have united against Oliver Cromwell, now a king in all but name. Three co-conspirators representing these factions plan to assassinate the Lord Protector, paving the way back to the throne for Charles Stuart once and for all. Captain Damien Seeker, meanwhile, is preoccupied by the horrifying discovery of an illegal gambling den of the body of a man ravaged by what is unmistakably a bear. Yet the bears used for baiting were all shot when the sport was banned by Cromwell. So where did this fearsome creature come from, and why would someone use it for murder? So I thought that sounded quite interesting, and it's going back into the 1600s, at the time of the Civil War in England. Well researched, I understand. That's The Bear Pit by Shona MacLaine. Another book I picked out, which I thought was quite intriguing, is called Away with the Penguins, and that's by Hazel Pryor. So that one is now on my reserve list at the library. Veronica Macready lives in a mansion by the sea. She loves a nice cup of Darjeeling tea whilst watching a good wildlife documentary. And she's never seen without her ruby red lipstick, although these days Veronica is rarely seen by anyone because at 85 her days are spent mostly at home, alone. She can be found either collecting litter from the beach, people who litter the countryside should be shot, trying to locate her glasses, someone must have moved them, or shouting instructions to her assistant Eileen, Eileen, door! Veronica doesn't have family or friends nearby. Not that she knows about anyway, and she has no idea where she's going to leave her considerable wealth when she dies. But today, Veronica is going to make a decision that will change all of this. So I thought that sounded a bit quirky, a little bit different. You might find that interesting. That's Away with the Penguins by Hazel Pryor. The next one I found really interesting. It's called Girl by Edna O'Brien. And Edna has written more than 20 works of fiction, most recently The Little Red Chairs, that you may have heard of. She's a recipient of numerous awards. I've listed them here, there's just so many. She's quite a prolific and very well, highly recognised writer, Edna O'Brien. Born and raised in the west of Ireland, another Irish writer. I love the Irish writers. She's lived in London for many years. So I read this book myself just recently and really enjoyed it. Maybe enjoyed is not quite the right word. It's quite harrowing, but very well researched and very exciting. It's a portrayal of a young woman abducted by Boko Haram, and if you remember that episode, set in the deep countryside of northeast Nigeria. This is a brutal story of incarceration, horror, and hunger, a hair-raising escape into the manifold terrors of the forest. I just found that whole thing fascinating. The way in which it happened, the aftermath, and just the whole thing. And Edna O'Brien, the book is called Girl. It's really, really good. The next one is called The Book of Lost Friends. And this is by Lisa Wingate. She's a #1 New York Times best-selling author of Before We Were Yours. Not heard of that one, I must admit. It's a new novel inspired by little-known historical events, a dramatic story of 3 young women on a journey in search of a family amidst the destruction of the post-Civil War South, and of a modern-day teacher who rediscovers their story and its vital connection to her own students' lives. In her distinctive voice, Lisa Wingate brings to life startling stories from actual lost friends, advertisements that appeared in Southern newspapers after the Civil War as freed slaves desperately searched for loved ones who had been sold off. Louisiana, 1875. So that's like 10 years after the Civil War in the States. In the tumultuous aftermath of Reconstruction, 3 young women set off as unwilling companions on a perilous quest. I just think the whole thing is fascinating, especially at the moment in the time of Black Lives Matter, with the protests and everything else that's happening at the moment. It's quite good to get maybe a deeper understanding of black issues, and this certainly delves into the heart of the issues of black issues. So that's The Book of Lost Friends by Lisa Wingate. Fascinating book by the sounds of it. The next one is The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. At least I presume it's pronounced St. John, St. John, pronounced St. John. So this one is on my reserve list. This is, in fact, I've just got it out of the library, so it's even better than being on my reserve list. It's actually just come in today. So this is The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. She's a young Canadian writer and a favourite of mine. She's only written a few novels, but I've read every one. She's very, very good. She's a joy to read, very different style, and she focuses on a number of different areas, genres, and so on. You can't tie her down to one thing, but she's very, very good, very interesting, very difficult to put down once you've started it. You may have heard of Station 11, which is the one, I think her first novel, which was very, very well received. So this is The Glass Hotel. It's a captivating novel of money, beauty, white-collar crime, ghosts, and moral compromise, in which a woman disappears from a container ship off the coast of Mauritania, and a massive Ponzi scheme implodes in New York, dragging countless fortunes with it. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be an excellent book. That's The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. Next up, I've got The Rules of War by Matthew Bentley. And this is number 4 in the series of Logan West thrillers. So it's a bit of a blokey bloke book, this one, but I think it just sounds really good. The Vice President of the United States is missing. The Director of the National Security Agency, NSA, has been assassinated, and the mysterious organization orchestrating global instability is in tatters. While John Quick recovers from a gunshot wound that nearly killed him, Logan West is on the hunt to bring the Vice President back to the US to face justice for his treason. The final stakes have never been higher, and Logan and his task force are left with little to no options. Will it be this warrior's end? Well, number 4, I think they've got to do at least 5, haven't they? So one assumes that he will survive this one. Rules of War by Matthew Bentley. So that sounds like fun anyway. Another one I picked out. You've got to remember, I've got just a few books here which I'm going over with you, but there must be hundreds. I haven't counted them all, but there are hundreds of books that come into the library every month. So this is just a smattering of the books that are there. This one is called The Last Death of Jack Harbin, and this is Samuel Craddock mystery by Terry Shames. So there's a whole bunch of names to throw around there. Terry Shames is the author, and it's called The Last Death of Jack Harbin. The shocking murder of a wounded veteran challenges the investigative skills of ex-Chief Samuel Craddock. Just before the outbreak of the Gulf War, two 18-year-old football stars and best friends from Texas signed up for the army, but Woody Patterson was rejected and stayed home to marry the girl they both loved. While Jack Harbin came back from the war badly damaged, the men haven't spoken since. Just as they are about to reconcile, Jack is brutally murdered. With the chief of police out of commission, it's up to the trusted ex-chief Samuel Craddock to investigate. Against the backdrop of small-town loyalties and betrayals, Craddock discovers dark secrets of the past and present to solve the mystery of Jack's death. So again, that's a totally different style from all the others. It sounds like a lot of fun. So that's The Last Death of Jack Harbin by Terry Shames. Next up is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. And this is a complete off the wall. This is a fantasy. Having narrowly saved the metropolis of Tevan from destruction, Sancio Grado and her allies have turned to their next task, sowing the seeds of a full-on magical industrial revolution. If they succeed, the secrets behind scriving, the art of imbuing everyday objects with sentience, will be accessible to all of Tevan's citizens, much to the displeasure of the robber barons who have hoarded this knowledge for themselves. So, once awakened, this chap will stop at nothing to remake the world in his horrifying image. So that sounds like a lot of fun. So that's fantasy. If you're into fantasy, and this is number 2 in the Founders Trilogy. So I guess there's a series of them. I think you can still read each one on its own, still will stand on its own merits. But that's number 2 in the Founders Trilogy, Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. Ah, that's right. Last one I've got here is called A Traveller at the Gates of Wisdom, and this is by John Boyne. John Boyne is another one of my favourite authors. I'm trying not to put all my favourite authors in here, but it's hard sometimes. I've read everything that John Boyne's ever written. Lovely Irish writer. And love them all. They're all fabulous. This one is also on my reserve list at the library. You may have heard of the Boy in Striped Pyjamas, which was made into a movie. It's actually a teen novel. It wasn't an adult novel, which I found very surprising. But that was John Boyne. He's written a number of very, very good books. I've read all of them. So he's an Irish writer, as I say. Yep. So, A Traveller at the Gates of Wisdom. I don't actually know much about this book, but the fact that it's John Boyne, I will read it because I just love John Boyne. I know it's going to be good. So that's just going into the fiction side of the library. There's so much on offer at the library, but that's just a few of the fiction novels that are going to be coming in this month. So if you've just tuned in, my name is Steve Lillyston, and you're listening to Our Library, which is a 30-minute program sponsored by the lovely folk at the Masterton Library, to let you know about some of the many new books being introduced into the library this coming month, and some of the services that are on offer at the library. I just covered some of the new fiction that's now available coming in this month at Masterton Library, and now I've got a very small sample of the non-fiction. And again, there are hundreds of non-fiction, all sorts of subjects you wouldn't believe. So just a couple of them here. One is called Ancestors in Our Genome. This is the science of human evolution by Eugene Harris. The complete DNA molecules comprising the human genome were deciphered 2 decades ago. With this discovery began a remarkable genomic voyage back in time, yielding a new science of human evolution. We are just beginning to unravel our full genomic history and answering age-old questions about how and when we evolved. For the first time, we are finding our ancestors in our genome and gleaning tantalizing clues about our past. Molecular anthropologist Eugene Harris, the author of the book, traces human origins back to our earliest human ancestors and explains how our genome has adapted as we spread to colonize new regions on Earth. So that sounds like a really fascinating book. Genomes are very much in the news these days, trying to mess around with them, and genetic engineering and so on. So this would be good to get some background on that and understand a bit more about the genome sequencing. So that's Ancestors in Our Genome by Eugene Harris. The second one I've pulled out of the hundreds of non-fiction, which is coming into the Masterton Library this month, is called Superior. This is with a subtitle of The Fatal Return of Race Science by Angela Saini. So for millennia, dominant societies have had the habit of believing their own people to be the best, deep down. The more powerful they become, the more power begins to be framed as natural as well as cultural. When you see how power has shaped the idea of race, then you can start to understand its meaning. Particularly relevant right now because of what's happening in the US with Black Lives Matter again. You see that popping up all over the place now, being able to understand race and race issues. And so this is another one, because it's all about, supremacy. People talk about white supremacy. So this examines those states. So that's Superior. That's the main title, The Fatal Return of Race Science by Angela Saini, S-A-I-N-I. The last one I picked out, which is non-fiction, the last of the non-fiction, just to give you an idea of the variety that we have here, is called Elephants. Birth, Life and Death in the Last Days of the Giants by Hannah Mumby. Elephants are as unique as people. They can be clever and curious, or headstrong and impulsive, shy or sociable. Learn to know them as individuals as well as a species in this evocative account of years spent studying elephant behaviour in the wild. So I thought that was just off the wall, but I can imagine that would be really interesting to delve into the the psychology of elephants. Elephants, Birth, Life and Death in the Last Days of the Giants. Wow, it's quite a lengthy title. By Hannah Mumby. Very well researched and very well written, I understand. So that's they're the main ones I wanted to pick out for you, just to give you an idea. As I say, there's hundreds of books that come in each month, and that's just a small sample from the at the Masterton Library, which is now open and open for business, as they say. Now that we're at level 1, it's a lot easier to get books in and out. Personally, I've just finished reading City of Margins by William Boyle. Now, I don't know if you've ever read William Boyle, but it's a very gritty, is the expression that was used in the description, in the review, and I go along with that. It's very gritty, set in Brooklyn, exploring the relationships of different couples which interact with each other. Really enjoyable, and a new author for me, which I always find quite exciting to pick up a new author. So that's William Boyle, City of Margins. Really enjoyed that. And another one, which a complete change as well. This is by Sally Rooney. Now, I don't know whether you've been watching the series on TV, which is called Normal People. She's an Irish writer, and it's set in Ireland. Two young people at school, they're sort of 16, 17, 18 sort of age. So that's her, that's Sally Rooney, that wrote Normal People, and it's a miniseries on Netflix, set in Dublin, all about relationships, just a lovely read. And this was called Conversations with Friends. Very similar to Normal People, which I've also read. Just a lovely writer. And again, the Irish, I just love the Irish writing. Have I mentioned that before? Possibly. So Sally Rooney, a new Irish writer for me, and just lovely. I'm currently reading Matt Haig's The Humans. And Matt Haig is really fun. He's a fun writer. He's quite young, I believe. And he writes a bit quirky sort of books. They're sort of science fiction-y, but... Well, no, they are sort of science fiction, I suppose. But it's more humour than science fiction. Very funny, very good. And a bonus for me is that there's always a dog in it somewhere. So... this is one of the genres of mine that I like, which I call Doggy Books. So it's got dogs featured in them, and they understand what's going on probably better than we do. So this one's called The Humans. This is Matt Haig's The Humans, and it's a guy that comes down and replaces a professor of mathematics who's just solved the Riemann hypothesis. And the whole universe is about to collapse because this guy has solved the Riemann hypothesis. So this alien has come down, taken over his body, and he's trying to remove all traces of the solution that this professor has found. It's just so funny and very well written, very entertaining. So I have, I think I've got about 20 books on my reserve list with Masterton Library, and they keep coming in. Now that the library's open, of course, they're coming in thick and fast. But what I've been able to do is, and you may or may not know this, if you don't, this is quite useful to know, that you can reserve a book, but maybe you're not quite ready now to read it, so you can set it. You can defer it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out, whatever date you want. So you know it's coming in, or it may already be in. You want it, but you got a few books at the moment, but you want something to read down the track. So it's all about managing that reserve list. So as I say, I've got about 20 books on there at the moment, and I've currently got 4 by the side of my bed, which I'm working through. Matt Haig's The Humans won't take long. I'm just loving it. I'll go straight through that. But I've got Walk the Wire by David Baldacci. That's one of the ones on my list. Love David Baldacci. I've read most of his books. Love by Roddy Doyle, another Irish writer. He's fun. Very, very fun, Roddy Doyle. He's good. Hidden in Plain Sight by Jeffrey Archer. Lord Jeffrey Archer, with all his problems that he came into years ago. Was it fraud and various other things that he committed? But a lovely writer, beautiful writer. Hidden in Plain Sight is, I think, is it his latest one? So I'm interested to read that. Camino Winds is another John Grisham, and that's coming in shortly. I love John Grisham. I've read most of his too. So yeah, that's just a few of the books I've got there. The Masterton Library is a fabulous resource, and one thing I do love is being able to identify the books I want to read, and I've got my reserve list, and I can put it on there and just forget about it. I know that's coming in, and I can track them if I need to, see whereabouts they're up to, whether they've actually come into the library, and how I'm ranked in the people who want to read it. So that's fun. So really, that's me for another month. But just before I go, I'd like to mention the Masterton Library's homebound service. Now, I spoke with Janet the other day from Masterton Library, who works with their homebound service department, and it's a service that's available to borrowers who are unable to visit the library in person. She goes to rest homes. I mean, people that are sick and just can't get out of the house. And they use a volunteer force. Janet is she's with the library itself, but they use volunteers as well to do that. And they go far and wide. I mean, they're way out to I think I'm right in saying this, they're way out to the coast. So it's a huge area that they cover. It's the Masterton district area, not just the urban area. It's all the way out. Volunteers pick up and drop off library books, magazines, talking books, CDs, DVDs, you name it, and they would do that. It's a fabulous service. So if you're interested, if you want to find out more about that service, you've got a friend or a relative who can't get to the library under their own steam, you can call the library on 370-6253 and ask for more information from the Masterton District Library, all the lovely people there. Check out the Masterton Library on Facebook and see the wide variety of programs that they have on offer there for the young and the old. There's always something going on. They put a lot of work into putting programs out there. Book clubs, there are readings for young children, and you name it, they've got everything there. So that's the Masterton Library's Facebook page. Do a like on that and check out to see what's going on there. That's me done. I'm Steve Lillyston. This was Our Library. It's a 30-minute program sponsored by the lovely folk at the Masterton Library to let you know about some of the many new books being introduced into the library, and also something about their services, of which they have many. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. Please tune in again next month. Our next broadcast of Our Library will be on Friday, July 24th at 3:30 on Arrow 92.7 FM or Wairapa TV Freeview Channel 41. So until then, happy reading. Bye-bye.